Happy Thursday, gentlemen.
Hey, Brian.
Good to see you here nice and early this week, Mike. Bump your other meeting off.
For a couple more weeks, yeah.
It's nice to have you around.
Good to be here. I did put a response on one of the PRs talking about the Docker Content Digest. That said opened up.
He volunteered last time. I was able to get someone to volunteer other than me, which is a rare day.
uh, my volunteer time is empty, but this is important.
We got a bunch of things in the queue right now that all need to get knocked out. I think people are starting to feel the pressure that, hey, that SHA-512 thing, we should really start supporting here soon.
This being one of those issues.
And I got pinged a while back. Apparently, it's making some attention, not just Said, it's Red Hat, isn't it? Am I keeping
Yeah,
everybody straight?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The post-quantum stuff is getting a lot of traction inside. They want to do everything 512 by the end of 2027. So there's a huge push for it.
I was getting pinged by Emily recently. She was said that I think she was saying some people at Red Hat were gonna be focusing a little bit more on this.
Yeah, she's
She was,
basically leading the whole effort. So yeah, she's reaching out to everyone.
yeah. She pinged me and was like, "Hey, what's the progress on that?" And I was said, "Here, let me dump you an entire PR and a couple of issues and all this stuff on you all at once." She goes, "Can you summarize that?" Like, we got stuff happening, but it's a lot to knock out with just whoever wants to volunteer this week. So let's see, we're getting a pretty decent quorum here. We can probably kick this thing off. Good to see so many folks this week. Get my desktop sharing going here. Pick the right one. Alrighty. So yeah, figured, Said, if you're up for it, we can kind of get this first one out the door
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
Do you want to lead it or you want me to just chat?
Well, it's a small change we discussed last week. So one of the things we were discussing on this PR was adding a must at this location where we're saying that the header for a get, or sorry, this is for a head must contain the Docker content digest header. So I'm for it. I think that makes sense to me. Um, what do you guys think?
I'm the one that first volunteered it, so I'm in favor of making it a must. And not just here, but as you pointed out, there are other places in the spec we would have to update to align with that.
Yeah.
I think if we're doing this for the need to do SHA-512 and other digest algorithms, all those workflows break if this is not a must.
Cool.
But I
So
wanted to,
one question I had was like must and should. So should is a and there's also may, right? So what's the difference there?
there is a spec.
Yeah, but the short version is that should is for things that we want to make must, but because of backwards compatibility, we can't make a must. So we say should instead.
Pretty much.
Uh,
Yep.
I mean, should just says for this version of the spec, it's required. There's no option.
Mhm.
If you're implementing it, you have to do this. Should says we really think you should do this. You can ignore it if you've got a good reason, but you really should do that. And May just says, hey, here's an optional thing. Do it if you want. We don't care.
Yeah, so yeah, yeah, I think must make sense there.
Yeah. For me, I'm on the must train. I kind of hear where I think Tionan was going with that, but my take, and Tionan, feel free to say no, you're wrong. But my take is if we make this a must for 1.2 plus versions of the spec, it doesn't change what we've already done in 1.1. So clients should probably be a little bit fault tolerant and understand that they might be dealing with an older registry, but that any registry going forward, if you want to be compliant with the spec, you've got to pass that header.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that the spec doesn't differentiate between clients and servers very much, because I think it's much more reasonable for us to say this is a must for servers and this is a should for clients. Like clients, reasonable clients should handle this not being set as much as they can, right? Because certain workflows require this header. That's why we're even having this conversation. But
Yeah.
but
I mean,
we know that there exist registries that have followed this bug in the spec and not provided this header.
yeah. So the path that I would go there is just make an implementer note. And so for this version of the spec, we're saying the registry must give you that. I mean, for the client to depend on it, that's where I want to put the implementer note of saying, hey, as a client, you might be talking to an older registry.
Yeah. That also means we have to do a version bump, right? That's more than just a patch release.
I would call it a 1.2. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is fine. It's just something we have to be aware of if we make that choice. And
Yeah.
I say we in the royal sense because I'm not actually a distribution spec maintainer.
But you are royalty.
Yep. I'll just be over here shining my crown.
There we go. Yeah. I'm on the same board with that one in those terms. Do we have other Mike, are you distribution spec as well? I think you are.
Yeah, yeah. My point on here, I put some comments in the PR is basically that there was an error in the spec, right? You can clearly see it where it included the distribution API version in the same should not text as with the Docker content digest. Um, it wasn't intended for that to be, right? That was a mistake. Um, there was already other places inside of the specification that mention the use of Docker Content Digest, and I think that's important. That's important to recognize, right? I don't think we need to, to do a spec version to fix the should part of this. Is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, say more. You're saying we don't have to release the spec to change the must to a should for people?
You need a revision of the prior specs to clarify the mistake where it said should not on the with respect to the content digest. And then add some examples where the client and as TNN said, the server should and client, especially when talking to a client that requires it, right? Um, Otherwise, you can't modify the digest, which digest is being used, yada yada, right?
Yeah, some of the comments I had in here was that there are other places in the spec where we are very specific that the Docker Content Digest header is returning the canonical digest. And I think we want to change some of that wording in other places of the spec to say, hey, it's not the canonical digest, it's whatever digest the registry knows for this object. And that should come from
Yes.
the client that generated that object.
Uh, I agree with that in context, and it would just need to be in a should without going to a must. Otherwise, we've got to go check all the registries and see if they all agree, which is it's a hard task.
So the challenge if the registry changes this on us is that you no longer have that linkage between a refer and the subject, because the
Right.
subject is going to have whatever digest it knew from its generation before it got pushed to the registry.
Yeah, I think I understand. All I'm saying is that we need to craft the text in a way that allows for those cases to exist, right? Even if they should not exist, but they do. So you can't really say it's a must, not without breaking version.
So I'm trying to think of how to, because I hear where you're going. You're saying there are registries out there that they're going to be old. They might not be doing this. I'm pretty sure the
And
distribution
and
project has some
clients that
bugs
aren't
there.
going to do it, and clients that aren't going to do anything with it. That
And
aren't going to
clients.
support other digest algorithms, right?
So a client that doesn't support another digest algorithm, we,
It's going to fail for one, right?
yeah, I don't know how much we can help that. So if somebody changes their content and says, hey, I want to use Blake 3, and now they realize that, oh, by the way, all these versions of all this different runtime code out there doesn't support Blake 3 yet, so now my content can't be used. That's kind of on the fault of the person to decide they want to ship their content with Blake 3.
When they do it with the client, yeah. Yep.
And and you do it as the content creator, not thinking about the downstream content consumers that are
To a certain
that
degree, some of the registries like Docker, right, have a process whereby they build the images themselves, not some end user with the client. The end user client permits the registry to do this. And so supposedly would have an option if there was a different digest that might be selectable, but right now it's not. It's just managed by the Docker team.
not quite following selectable and where.
No, I said you could add, well, there's a when you log in, right, with your account to Docker, there's a different API. It's not the distribution API, it's the metadata / API for the registry for your account setup.
Yeah, but if I build an image, that build runs on my laptop or my CI pipeline, wherever it is.
Yeah.
It's not run on Docker Hub, and Docker Hub receives from that build tool when it pushes the content up to Docker Hub, whatever digest I tell it that I'm supposed to be pushing this content with.
Yeah, I agree with that pattern. And I was just mentioning there's another pattern where
So that's what I don't follow.
the
So
client can be the registry in the case of the Docker root images, if you will, right, Tina?
so you're saying the base images would
Yeah,
have,
base images.
yeah,
They're built by Docker. Yeah. Mhm.
built by whoever. You know, if it's the official library, it's by Docker, but you could have a base image of whatever third party if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's not,
Those will
right. And
those will have whatever digest was on the base image. You still have the same problem at that point.
while they're building the base image, the Docker team actually builds it. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
potentially you can change that. I have done that before.
It's just a weird case that I'm mentioning here that in some cases the registry is the client for the
I'm
push.
kind of, I hear you. I'm going to take a slightly alternate take on that of saying it's not the registry as the client. In that case, the registry is relaying from a different client. And in that case,
Uh,
the build tool is also the consumer tool.
yeah. I don't think they make those tools public, but yeah. Okay.
Well, build kit's public. It's pulling down base images.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the how Docker builds the public images.
It's all completely open source.
Yeah.
It is open source. Okay, cool.
100% open source, Mike, and always has been.
And reproducible. Kinda.
I mean, reproducible in the sense that you can build them yourself and get results that match the results that we got,
Well, that's good.
but not reproducible in the sense that it will be bit for bit identical. It will be close enough that you can do a diffoscope on the tar balls and go, oh, yeah, those are obviously the same.
That was my kind of qualifier.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I wasn't trying to go in that direction. I meant in the case in this particular case, you'd be asking Docker to provide or modifying the Docker open source code if that's where it is. And I go back 10 years on this one, so I'm remembering a little differently, I think, um, as far as the registry API goes.
Yeah, so my take on this in general is that the clients should always determine the digest of the images of the image that they produce. Now, if you have base images and you're expanding other things, more than likely you as a client are going to want to preserve whatever that original layer digest is. Maybe not, but I think a lot of times you will, just for content reuse, efficiency, and that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
and for preserving, are you bringing in the issue of multiple digests
Yeah,
in
you could potentially have multiple digests on the same image,
right,
multiple digest algorithms.
right.
Doesn't mean you have to. You can convert it, but I think people that want to have layer reuse tend to not do that.
I'm gonna presuppose that the quantum, encryption guys are gonna want this more on the data, that's deployed than the code.
Yeah, potentially for security, they'll want to update that. At the same time, for security, they'd want their base image to be on the SHA-512 as well.
Right.
All right, so long roundabout conversation there, but I think, yeah, the key thing I wanted to make sure on this one that didn't get lost was that when we say it returns the canonical digest, I want to reframe that side to focus on whatever the client is that is pushing the content.
Yeah.
They're the ones that determine what that digest is, and so the registry is just relaying that information from that point.
Yeah. There's a bunch of places where we say canonical digest.
Yeah. So
Right.
I might have blown your PR up into a bigger thing.
Yeah, I'll change them.
Because the risk is canonical means SHA-512, SHA-256 to a lot of us.
Yeah.
And that breaks the entire concept of what we're trying to do here. Doesn't mean that I haven't seen a registry do that. I think distribution is famous for saying, yeah, I'll take your 512 and then gives back the 256. Keep looking at it saying, I didn't mean for you to change that on me. All right. I think we got a good bit of this. Other maintainers have thoughts, opinions on this one?
So we did we get a resolution on should versus must here?
I'm on board with must. I think other people are on board with must, but make sure to include some kind of implementer's note here that just says, hey, clients,
Yeah.
while it's a must in the newer version of the spec, older versions aren't. And so be ready, be tolerant of a registry that doesn't do this. And we've got implementers notes other places. It just means that it's not hard and fast spec languages of how you must do something. It's just kind of a guide for someone just to be aware there be dragons over here.
Yeah, sounds good. As a technical note for the client for this particular case, yada yada, the client must do that, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, a client written to the new version of spec would know, hey, I've got this field, I can use it. But the implementer just says, hey, you're talking to whoever you happen to be talking to that day.
Right. And I don't think that for that case, if you list out that case as a technical note, I don't think the must language requires a spec revision change.
For the implementer note, no. For changing
Right.
the should to a must and this other stuff, I think we do want to have a spec version bump. So 1.1 to 1.2.
I think what Mike's saying is if you add the implementer's note, there's no need to change that should to a must.
Right. All we have to delete is the should not use the die.
So so I think that's where I disagree. I think I do want this as a must. You're saying you don't want this as a must, Mike?
No, I'm saying that for the prior specifications, I want it to remain a should, but I want to fix the
Oh,
should not in the prior as a revision to the prior
so
spec. And
I don't think
then
we can ever change the prior, can we? Once we cut that
we
release,
we
we're
can we can have a revision. It's a bug in the text, just like a CVE.
I mean, we could release a patch, but I don't think this would be a patch.
Yeah, I'm talking about something small. There was one part of the of this PR that hit some text, right, where the writer meant only for the version that you should not be, dependent upon, should not be dependent upon by the clients. It wasn't meant to be, oh yeah, and the digest should not be required because then further in the specification, at that even at that version of the specification, it continued to talk about the places where it should be used.
So
It was a
it
bug.
said where
Yeah,
tools should output it, but it didn't say up here. It was like this is optional, but it also was saying clients should not depend on them,
no clients of
meaning
tools
that
too. Yeah,
meaning that hey, registries might be supposed to output this, but you shouldn't depend on that. Um, I don't think that was a mistake at that time. I think they intentionally meant that to mean exactly what it says. But you've got more history than I do, so if there's something I missed,
I think there were two sentences. One was a list of particular Docker headers, and we were talking about switching all the tags from Docker to OCI,
hmm.
right? And I think in that light, this particular legacy paragraph just got rewritten a little bit differently. And then later on, we said, oh yeah, but this, with the exception of this Docker content digest, we need to use that all over the place.
So in this change, I removed the Docker content digest header from that sentence, but I still kept the API version. Um, what you're suggesting, Mike, is to completely remove that line, like optional. Um, the headers are optional and should not depend on them.
Only just specifically say that one response header should not be dependent upon.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So
Unless
that's
we
that's
want, right. Yeah. Because I'm basically trying to say it was a mistake. Maybe I'm wrong, but my memory of it was that this was just it was just a wording mistake, which was not, you know, normalized across the entire spec. We never intended that to happen. We used to have at that point in time a different set of docs that describe, these additional use cases, and that documentation got removed as well.
The infamous details.
Yeah, the infamous details. Oh,
Every time I look back at that document, I think this is kind of what I want to recreate at some point. So I don't know if I can make someone unhappy or happy if I ever go back and recreate that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't care if it says Docker Content Digest over OCI Content Digest. They mean the same thing. So, let's move forward.
Yeah, there was a big push at the time when I was reading all the PR notes on that one that some folks were saying, let's change all this to OCI, but not
Right,
on the version 1.0. Let's wait until version 1.1. But then other folks were of the opinion that we shouldn't just change headers for the sake of changing a header string. There needs to be some actual value behind that change.
right.
And sound like in the in the settling of all the disagreements over that one, it was just kind of came to this point of, hey, these headers are there, but don't depend on them because some people don't want to use it. But I think we've gotten
And
to the point now that
yeah,
people depend on it. So
yeah,
let's update the spec to make sure that's clear.
yeah.
All right, Saeed, did we give you enough to work with there?
I guess so. Yeah. Um, there's a few things. So the first thing is adding an implementers note to the this place here where we're changing the should to a must. Then the other thing is fix all the places where we use canonical digest. So that those are the two things I get from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
I think the phrasing, because Mike, you were saying to delete this sentence, but you're saying to delete this sentence in context of Dr. Content Digest, which is no longer in the new version. So is Saeed good to keep that in your opinion?
Yeah, because we removed the defending header.
Are you in agreement there, Mike?
I wrote some text there. He can take a look and use what he wants or not, and then I'll review it again.
Oh, you want to change the text. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's two comments there. The second one, I hate the way GitHub works sometimes. The second one was the rewrite.
okay.
Okay.
You'll
I thought
see
you
three
just wanted to get
sentences
rid of it.
there that mean what I meant in the prior delete message that's showing in that PR.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Because when you put the first in there, I thought you just said delete and
I yeah,
that threw
no.
us all off.
I meant delete and sorry.
Okay.
And replace with this text.
You need the magical, when you go in and do the review, it's the magical, and it might get kind of thrown off because I already had a comment in there. But when you multi-select, so from here down, select multiple lines, and then it lets you do a revision on both of those. But then when you say I want to do the change suggestion, you can change all those lines together.
Interesting. I'll have to try that.
In case you wanted to change more than one line. All right. I didn't think that was going to take half the meeting, but we kind of knocked right through that one. And we got the whole may, must, should language clarified for anybody who didn't know that RFC out there. Everybody else good with this? Anything more on that one, or should we move on forward? All right. Hearing no objections. Yeah, this was the context that we were just trying to support Shop Talk 12. So I did kind of reference this one over there, just saying, hey, on that issue there, we are working on it. So folks have questions on there, they can follow that link back and see what's happening. I did want to resurrect something from last week's meeting, which was we are looking at this content negotiation table and realized that, hey, nobody is actually, well, not nobody, some very key registry players out there just don't even do any of this stuff. And a lot of us don't want to do any of this stuff, or we do it slightly differently. So I just want to get an issue out there so we could track it just to say, hey, we probably want to either get rid of that table or rebuild it to make it reflect what's really going on out there. If we got rid of it, I kind of want to lean toward the RFCs, which specify how you're supposed to do an accept header and a content type header. And if we still want to have, if we do that, do we lose the ability to return a manifest from within an image? Today, you can say, give me just an image, not an index. And the registry will respond back and pull one entry out of that index and say, here you go, here was one. I think it's a bad practice. I don't think many people are actually doing that, but it does exist. So we could potentially get rid of that behavior and then just depend on the RFC, it makes everything real easy, or we keep the old pre-existing behavior. And if we do that, we're going to need to rewrite that table. So kind of wanted to raise some visibility there, get some comments if folks had opinions one way or another there. Maybe a good starter question is there a single person out there that depends on the behavior that a registry can dereference an index and give you back a single image from within it? That is the appropriate amount of crickets.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Pretty sure Docker Hub
If
removed that behavior many years ago.
if you query a registry, Mike, and you say just give me the manifest, but the current image out there has a manifest list, there
Right.
is some behavior out there at some point in time that it would dereference that manifest list and find the individual manifest from within there. I think it preferred Linux AMD 64. I don't know if you didn't have that on the list, what it would do at that point. Maybe it just picks the first one. Um, yeah, matching acceptable one in there. So it's trying to find an entry from the manifest list.
Yeah, yeah. But based on platform switch. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So given that, there was also a lot of stuff in there where if you didn't have it, or if you specified star.star or anything else, it was going to go back to schema v1 on the Docker side of the manifest. I don't think we on the OCI side need to, should, want to define that behavior because that's not a manifest media type we support. And I
Right.
don't think any registry going forward wants to support it. So
Nor clients, right?
yeah. So
Yeah,
ditching.
the
Go
distribution
ahead.
spec at large is pretty clear that the data model is content addressable storage, and this is not that, right?
Yeah. I mean, the place I bumped into it because Brian's over there saying, wait, we did that? Anytime you wrote a curl without an accept header, which was everybody that was writing curl commands back in the day would realize real quick that when you're querying the manifest, you had to include the accept headers. But we fixed that. So all my old Stack Overflow answers are now wrong, but don't worry, they're now embedded into some chat GPT and so people won't forget to do it going forward. All right, so distribution, Docker Hub, a bunch of other folks got rid of that old behavior, probably for the better. The dereferencing, did they also, do you know if they got rid of the dereferencing from a manifest list to an individual image?
I'm fairly positive that code's gone. Maybe Jeff has looked at it more recently, but
I'm pretty sure it's gone.
no, I can say for sure I deleted the accept code. I made that deletion. The accept code is completely gone. Docker Hub doesn't parse accept headers at all.
Okay. So that being the case, this whole thing can probably go away now. If we if that code is completely gone, does that mean that if we put the RFC in there, that would be invalid at that point?
I mean, if you ask for a particular piece of content, we give you that piece of content, regardless of what your accept header says,
Okay.
which
Because
I
the path I
think would
went,
be the expected behavior, but maybe the HTTP RFCs say differently.
so the path I went was if you say nothing, or if you say star.star, or if you say a media type that matches the media type of the content, I give you the content. If you say anything that doesn't match the media type of the content, then I reject it. And I come back and just say, we've got an error code in the spec for that.
I would say the only way I would support this is if we had a return back a manifest plus XML format instead of JSON. I would say yeah, returning something other than what was requested just seems very anti, like, I don't know. It seems like an anti-pattern to what a registry should do. Yeah, if you want to change it so the manifest is returning XML instead of JSON, sure, but not don't return something different.
I think it was a a manifest unknown. Trying to remember there is an error code that we're supposed to return on that one. But then I even put it in the error message itself, not just say, hey, you requested this in my message. I put some code and detail in there and just say, hey, you requested this media type. The content you're asking for is that media type. If you want, you got to put the right media type or none.
Yeah, I would take the perspective of the registry is supposed to be content addressable storage. What you put in is what you get out. And if the client wants to validate what it's receiving, then it should do that validation. It shouldn't rely on the registry to do that validation. Just because I told the registry I only accept manifests and manifest lists and image manifests and indexes doesn't mean the registry shouldn't give me back exactly what I put in.
I'm waiting for the new artifact media type that breaks everything.
Yeah. If you really want to break things in that way, then sure, go ahead. The registry should return it the same if it supports that type. And clients should be responsible enough to say, I don't know what that is. Which they have to anyways, because registries aren't going to implement accept header parsing in the same way universally.
Yeah,
That's not a reasonable expectation.
It just gives the client a way of saying, hey, I need one of these media types that I know how to parse. And if the registry doesn't have it, the registry can just say, sorry, don't got it. Don't even bother returning it.
Yeah, but at that point, the registry's already done the work to look it up. And it shouldn't be bigger than 4 megabytes.
Gotta wait that entire 4 megs, figuring out that you couldn't use the thing that you said you didn't want.
Yeah. Then you shouldn't have tried pulling it.
Gonna say this where the head request for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's leave this one simmering in the queue for a while. See if other folks have opinions in there. We politely disagree, but not in a big way. I think regardless, the table needs to go. It's a bad table.
As far as
All right.
removing the table, you might want to consider just adding another column with versions where it was, still valid, and then versions where it's no longer valid.
Is there anything in this table that still has any value today?
I
Only
mean,
if
the
you're
table
using
started
an
with to
older.
do.
I think literally you'd have to be using an old version of a registry. Your own private Docker registry, for example.
Right. At which point you should probably be reading old documentation, right?
Yep.
So I don't think there's value in the distribution spec carrying this old content that is already severely bit rot
Fair.
and has no value as is.
Fair.
And this is coming from the only person I know who still argues that Schema 1 manifests should still exist and be pullable.
No longer supported. Sorry.
So, Tinon, you are right there. You are the only person that wants that.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah, we don't even have a build config option for that in Containerd anymore.
Yep.
It's gone.
I'm well aware. I have a project that works around that because of Containerd removing support.
Oh, geez. But you're still, in that view, okay with removing this from the table? Because
I think we should delete this entire file. frankly.
Ooh,
Git RM. I don't think there's anything in this file that provides any value to anyone.
I mean, I think the other reality is it's very unknown. Was this ever actually relevant and when? When was this relevant? What tools support it? Like no one really knows. Like a lot of tools have just silently removed compatibility for a while. And so I would say, yeah, if you want to look up the history of it, just look at the Git history. There's not really any use in it being around other than adding confusion.
Last modified 5 years ago. It was a placeholder. We brought a table over, left a to-do at the top, and never to did it.
Because, like, what would you even do? There's nothing to do here. It's to done.
yeah, open up 212.
To Git RM.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
I mean, we had this nice, pretty table over here that was worked on, bunch of verbiage, backward compatibility. A lot of folks had opinions. And this is still open. So may come back to a, yeah, we solved it. We deleted it. I think Roger's going to be very depressed to find out that no one paid attention to this and just got rid of it entirely. Or maybe he's happy because you just don't even care and you always return whatever it is. So,
Yeah, I think Roger was mad that accept /* wasn't enough to actually get the content that you put in, right? Which is
yeah,
reasonable. It's a very reasonable thing for him to be mad about.
I admit to being another one of those people that tried it and found out no, it doesn't work. And then now apparently it does, but not for the reason I
Okay,
think it does.
cool. Let me go look up that spec page that lists all the media types so I can copy paste all of them explicitly into my header just so that the registry will give me back the only content that exists at this location in the content addressable store. That's insane, right?
So,
Absolutely nuts.
so when it was doing the fallback to V1 or the fallback to a manifest from a manifest list, there was some logic in there, but it was bad logic that nobody wants.
Yeah. And that fallback did serve its purpose for a reasonable amount of time, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
I think we can move on.
Yeah, we
The
agreed.
old versions that needed it are long since end of life.
Yes,
Yeah, the list index that's sort of supported now. So multi-arc, it happened.
it did. All right. A couple other things I'd thrown on the list. I have no idea what the current status is, because it's in Jory's hands. Supposedly, this is going to be done on 27th, so that should be next Tuesday. But I haven't heard anything from Jory in a while, so not sure what's happening there. And then
I
this is,
I
go
haven't
ahead.
seen a call for votes on that either.
So this was going to the member companies.
Yes, I'm on the trademark board. I
Okay.
haven't seen a call for votes.
So we may not have enough people to fill the whole board out
Or
if she's
Jory's
not.
just really busy.
Yeah. But yeah, I've pinged a few times. I had the operations email, sent a DM, haven't heard anything back. But she's got the little green dot. So supposedly she's around. Thanks, Ajay. But I think the green dot is permanent on her Slack. I think she is tells it not to let anybody know she's idle. This was the other one to chat about. And Mike, I saw you wanting to do an addition. I'm going to put this into context. We've got things that are copyright, Open Containers Distribution Specification.
Right.
We've got things that are copyright Linux Foundation. And as of the last merge, contributors to the Open Containers Distribution Specification.
Right.
So the language gets fuzzy and a little all over the place. And that's just this one spec. We've got other things out there. I think it was Run C that I saw that still in the license file says this is copyright Docker Inc., which I don't know if that's still the case with the contribution to OCI or not. That's a question for lawyers to answer. But in here, it just still says, hey, this is Docker Inc.'s code as of 2014. They wrote it. I just don't know if the donation changes that or not.
That's an interesting place to put the copyright statement in the license.
It's in every license. All of
Except
our
in the original license text, it's here's how you apply the license, and it's an example of how to add the text to all of your files. It's not intended to be a place where you actually put the copyright notice.
Bingo.
Yeah,
I
you
could have
shouldn't.
sworn that was
Nope.
The license, the Apache 2 license, if you apply it to your code, should be copied verbatim into your code.
Yep. As written by Apache, and it doesn't say Docker there.
How to apply it to your work. Add this boilerplate text.
Copyright name of, right. That's the text you're supposed to have at the top of your files,
Yeah,
not the text that's supposed to be in the license.
yeah.
okay.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that's done it the right way then. I think everybody's ever read this, somebody's changed it.
Not
Last time I
everybody.
checked, we had it right in Container D the last time I checked, but I haven't. It's been a while.
It is an extremely common misconception, though,
Yeah.
because who would want to read this legalese? Let's be honest. Even the lawyers don't actually want to read this legalese.
I used to work for an IP law firm, so I did.
So, I mean, as applied to a project, my project, I would say I want to have that in there because everybody is copying this in my work would copy that, including the copyright.
And frankly, like back to the Docker Inc. copyright in Run C that we're talking about, I don't know whether or not there was a copyright assignment that happened as part of that open sourcing, but it in practice doesn't actually matter because Docker Inc. can still hold the copyright and it still be Apache 2 licensed. Docker Inc. would hold the copyright for the code that Docker Inc. provided.
Yeah. And that's why I'm not hung up on that one. I just want to make sure that LF Legal gets a chance to look over that and just give their check of approval of what it's supposed to be.
The OCI doesn't have a copyright assignment. We don't do a CLA. So every PR, the person making the PR retains the copyright to the code that they provide.
Yeah.
Yep. DCO, man.
Which
and
is
that's why it's
fine,
contributors
right?
too.
Yeah. Theoretically, we're fine. The only thing I was trying to say here is that we shouldn't just, search and replace all the copyrights. We should be only adding, our own copyright at the top.
So there are a lot of places where like we've had these things. It's Susie and other individuals in there that have done their things. That I got no issue on. I think that makes a lot of sense. And as you get other users in there, now it's Susie and the open containers authors. I think that kind of goes into what you're saying, Mike, of when you have multiple people, you just list them in there.
Yeah, and they don't have to all be in the same block. If you're doing scan tools to make sure that all the files, all the source files and spec doc files have, the copyright notice, then you can just, have multiple copyright notice blocks that mention, any licensing issues.
Yeah, I think the reason they listed these up here, it's both of those are Apache 2, and so there's all in the Apache 2. If you had different licenses, you might have a different license block.
Right. I'm just saying some projects have scan tools that verify the text is there for every file. We
Yeah.
don't have that currently in our project, but I know many others that do.
Yeah. And when we get into that, that also goes into another one of the questions that I want LF to weigh in on, which is, does this just need to be the Go source code? Do we also want to include the specification markdown files? Do we want the YAML files for things like GitHub Actions, which is kind of code-ish in there? Can be scripts and whatnot. Where does this notice need to go and where does it need to go? I don't know the answer, and I just want to make sure that LF gets a chance to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, if Sam were here, Sam would be yelling at us that we need to get LF Legal to look at this.
No, I pinged Jory on this one as well. Just said we need them to clarify.
Yeah, typically it's nice to have a root level project copyright definition and license, and then if there's any deltas inside, you do the deltas inside.
Yeah. I'm looking specifically at the overall OCI organization, not just distribution spec, not any
Yeah,
one project here. I think we need something from up high that just says, thou shall say Linux Foundation in all of your copyright files, and I'll be fine with that. But they just need to give us that guidance. So another one for Jory. Do we have anything else? That might have been the only thing in there. Yeah, that was my list. Or are there other things folks wanted to chat about? And we can keep chatting about this other stuff. I don't mean to knock us off that subject, but just want to make sure if anybody had other topics so we don't run out of time for it. Or we can talk about OCI Schema V1, or not really OCI Schema 1, it's more Docker Schema 1. T9, you need to rename that repo.
No.
All right, folks, that's all I got today. Feel like we were relatively productive. Good, healthy discussion, at least. So with that, if anybody's about to get hit by snow, stay safe and shovel out. Everybody's not going to get hit by snow. Enjoy watching the rest of the country go through chaos for a couple days.
Anybody that's not, you must be living in Florida.
Or West Coast. I think West Coast is safe from it.
Are they? Okay.
I think it's between me and you, Mike. Starts in Texas, works its way up to me.
There you go.
There we
Don't
go.
forget Canada. So
Oh, Canada.
we have a we have a
Canada
lot
knows how to deal with it,
more.
though.
Yeah, exactly. We
Canada not only
get
knows
snow
how-
or ice. We don't know what the heck to do.
Canada knows how to deal with it, and they measure it in meters. They do two things right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pros.
3 feet. Meters. Got
3
it.
feet is nothing.
Oh boy. Tina, that's where I call the end of the meeting right now, real quick. Good chatting with everybody. Take care, all. And we'll circle back to you next week.
Cheers,
Not
everybody.
touching that one at all.
I know, not touching it. All right, man. See you.
All right.
Cheers.
Take care, all.